Yumiko! Why is my controller not working? Fix it later. I burst into the room, not pausing to take off my shoes. The scene inside confirms my worst fears. The dim, shadowy apartment had been completely transformed since this morning. In the kitchen I can make out shattered tableware and clothes scattered all over the place. The living room space is comparatively undisturbed, but the lingering scent of something burnt in the air feeds the storm of panic swirling through my mind. Those bastards! How did they track us down? Yumiko, you're safe! Relief washes over me as my eyes find Yumiko cowering in the middle of the room. They were here, weren't they? The room's a complete disaster. They must have been here. I'm amazed you were able to resist. You're always surprising me, Yumiko. Yeah, it's pouring out there. I did have an umbrella, but I dropped it when I saw the light wasn't on in here. Not like you'd be going out in this weather. I knew something had to be wrong. Still, those people should have been able to carry you off if they wanted to. Did they deliberately let you walk? What's the game here? I'm wrong about what? Hmm? Housework? Housework. I turn around and take in the scene once more. Don't be ridiculous, Yumiko. It looks like someone was fighting off a burglar in here. Housework couldn't possibly produce a disaster scene like this. Hmm? It's more than a little hard to believe, but from the miserable look on Yumiko's face, it's clear enough that she's telling the truth. It's also clear just how hurt she is. The way I jumped to conclusions certainly didn't help at all. I quietly cursed myself for making a bad situation even worse. I see. Well, okay. In that case, let's start by cleaning up the room. You're not the only one. I came running in here wearing my wet shoes, see? Just look at all those footprints. Won't take as long if we work together. And more importantly, Yumiko, I want to help you. Whenever and however I can, alright? This last argument seems to finally do the trick. Yumiko makes no further attempt to object. Okay then, let's get this cleaned up right away, alright? No, we've got broken glass here, well, that's dangerous. No, it's fine. Ow! God damn it. I cut the tip of my finger against a shard of glass like a complete idiot. I'm physically worn out, so my fingers were trembling a bit, and I was moving a little quickly to keep Yumiko from touching it. Still a pretty pathetic slip-up by any standard. Oh, don't worry, it's fine. Got clumsy and scratched myself. Nothing serious, I'll be alright. It's really not that big of a deal. Are you listening to me? Whoa. Without a word, she buries her face against my chest. The sound of the rain outside our dark little room seems to grow louder. It feels as if the relentless drumming isn't just filling my ears, but also clouding my vision. Like that day when she cowered at the thunder, Yumiko clings to me firmly, her body still and rigid as a stone. What's wrong? Bringing up a bad memory or something? Yumiko? I can hear a faint sound almost like stifled sobbing, but I didn't think Yumiko would get upset over something this minor. Well, no. Maybe I just don't want to believe it. I wrap an arm around her shoulders and wait quietly for the storm to pass. Alright, Let's eat.
いただきます。
Yumiko sits across the dinner table, her shoulders still slump miserably. Her long hair falls like a shadow across her downcast face. Oh, come on. It's not anything worth brooding over like this. Okay, okay. I'll leave it alone. Just eat your dinner. It's good.
ごめんなさい。
For what?
いろいろと。
Well, you don't have to be. I'm feeling more grateful than anything else. It made me happy, what you tried to do today. The results don't change that. Also, you're pretty convinced you failed, but this meat stew is seriously good. Hell, a lot better than the dull stuff I'm always making. Even with that alone, you could call this a success.
それだけって結構あると思うけど。
Oh, that's just how it goes with housework sometimes. No need to let it get to you, alright? I'm well aware that I'm not even being particularly coherent right now. Even so, I care a hell of a lot more about Yumiko than a few broken plates. She's the whole reason I'm here. The whole reason I was able to break away from a meaningless, empty life as someone else's dog. All of a sudden, the words I decided to say last night popped back into my head. Yumiko, you said you don't want to be a burden on me, right? Well, not to repeat myself, but you've got it all backwards. It's only because you're with me that I can keep going. Thank you.
まだ責めてくれた方が楽だったかもしれない。
Don't talk nonsense. I don't have anything to chastise you for.
そうね。ユージはそう言ってくれるわよね。
Yumiko smiles awkwardly, but there's still more than a hint of gloom in her eyes. You know, we're both trying our best to help each other. We both care about each other very much. I know all that. I know this disconnect is the product of exhaustion and stress that come with living as fugitives. Even so, I can't help feeling guilty. Maybe Yumiko wouldn't be looking this sad right now if I wasn't so incompetent. Maybe we wouldn't be hiding like rats if I wasn't such a worthless piece of trash. But just thinking those thoughts is an insult to the woman who believes in me. I push the black pessimism out of my mind with an effort of will. Our room's silent, except for the intolerable droning of the rain. No matter how long we wait, it doesn't give the slightest sign of stopping anytime soon. Alright then, I'm gonna get going. Yumiko?
ごめんなさい。いってらっしゃい、ユージ。
Yumiko leans in close and our lips slightly touch. Pretty plain compared to the passionate kisses we were exchanging here only a week ago. I'll come back early today, alright?
うん。
3 days have passed since that commotion. Unfortunately, Yumiko still hasn't cheered up whatsoever. Lingering regret over her blunders is only a small part of it, I think. Seems more like a deep reservoir of self-doubt that's been gathering inside her for months is finally overflowing out under the surface. I told her not to worry about it, but no matter how many times I deny it, Yumiko seems firmly attached to the conclusion that her uselessness is dragging me down. The situation's probably not going to improve until the girl realizes that's not true. I want to convince her somehow, but I just can't seem to find the right words. You know, right now all I can manage is to act like everything's normal in the hope she'll forget about this a little sooner. God, a real relationship can be one hell of a difficult balancing act. Even more than the physical fatigue, the knowledge weighs down on my shoulders.
"何をやっているのかしら。ユージの役に立ちたいのに何もできないなんて。私の存在がユージを追い詰めている。
Oh, damn it. I hope she's not brooding over there. Even in the middle of work, I can't get Yumiko out of my head. Leaving the girl alone at a time like this worries me. When I'm there, I can talk to her. It's a stopgap measure, but I can embrace her until she calms down. Solitude just amplifies fear and doubt. In a frustrating situation like this, talking to yourself for hours on end is a very dangerous thing. I should know, I do it all the time. However, I simply don't have the flexibility to spend all of my time with Yumiko right now. Our financial situation is way too tight. I've got no choice but to finish up here and get back to her as quickly as humanly possible. Lugging another sandbag into place, I exhale heavily and look up into the sky. The weather's nice. So fine that it almost makes me a little uneasy.
今頃、有志は働いている頃よね。私は何もしていないのに。そればかりか邪魔までして。本当に愚かよ。本当に。そうよね。私さえいなければ、有志はこんなことには。どこにも見当たらないわ。ほとんどが携帯に切り替わったからかしら。コンビニの前にも見当たらない。早く見つけないと。
Oh no, is she gonna turn herself in?
あった。
よーし、今日はもう上がりでいいぞ。
Right. The work progressed a little more quickly than expected. A little past 2 in the afternoon, I get approval to head home. Unfortunately, today's site was pretty far from the apartment. I have to get back as quickly as possible for Yumiko's sake and mine.
明日から忙しくなりそうだから、よく休んどけよ。
Yes, sir. I'm already changing out my sweaty work clothes as my boss says goodbye. Oh, that's right, tomorrow's gonna come. A new dividing line between the past and the future. No matter how many painful and ugly wounds you've suffered, there's always a possibility of healing as long as you keep walking forward. That's one thing I have to make Yumiko understand. Struggle all you want. Look for your answers. Just don't throw away your own tomorrow.
そうよ。ちゃんとお願いすれば分かってくれるわよね。あの人だって私が必要なだけなんだから。私が帰る代わりに有事は罪に問わないでって。そうお願いすれば。
公衆電話。誰だ。はい。
何をしてるの。また有志を裏切ってしまうところだった。
切れた。
すでに風見雄二、由美子さんの両名とも所持していた携帯電話は破棄されています。今後仮に向こうから連絡を取ろうとした場合、公衆電話からかけることが考えられます。着信があった場合は。
公衆電話、まさか。おい、今携帯にかかってきた公衆電話の記録、すぐに調べろ。由美子からか例の軍人の可能性が高い。急げ。ついに降参か、由美子。
Uh-oh. I wasn't able to get back that early after all. The return train from the site was delayed, so it's already evening by the time I'm back in town. I'm barely any different from usual. Driven along by sheer impatience, I find myself straying rapidly down the street. Now this is no good. Why am I feeling so uneasy? Probably because I kept dwelling on the situation while I worked. Unproductive thoughts kept flitting through my mind. Shaking my head to drive away those vaguely ominous feelings, I hurry home while maintaining an appropriate level of vigilance. A good feeling is usually the product of wishful thinking, but a bad feeling is grounded in experience and reality. Therefore, the latter proves accurate more often than the former, or so they say. The lights are out in our apartment. The instant I see that, all the dark thoughts I've been fighting today spring violently back to life. Yumiko! Dropping the armful of used books I bought as a distraction for Yumiko, I sprint up the stairs to the second floor. Yumiko, are you there? I unlock the door and rush inside. No sound or movement answers my frantic entrance. Was I too? Huh? At first I thought she left the apartment, but as my eyes adjusted, I find her hunched down quietly in the middle of the room, arms wrapped around her knees. The curtains are tightly shut, the sun hasn't set, but our room's enveloped in darkness. Unlike last time, there's no signs of mess or physical damage. And yet it's obvious at a glance that Yumiko is in far, far worse shape than she was the other day. What happened, Yumiko? I run over and shake her by the shoulder more roughly than I intended. As my hand moves, Yumiko's head rocks loosely back and forth like that of a broken doll. And with a terribly glacial movement of her neck, she lifts her face to look at me.
私何の役にも本当に何も
Yumiko? The first thing out of her mouth wasn't my name, or even the words of apology I know so much. They were empty, bitter words, filled with profound self-loathing. Something happened, right? All I can say for sure is that something is very wrong. Very seriously wrong. One misstep here and everything might fall apart. Yumiko, tell me what's wrong, please. At the very least, I need to tell her to tell me what happened. I can't do a thing until I know what we're up against. Yumiko opens her mouth slightly, closes it, then repeats the process. Finally, in a frail whisper, far removed from her normal forceful voice, she speaks.
電話かけようとして
A call? What, on a payphone? We destroyed Yumiko's cell phone immediately after beginning our life on the run. Yumiko slowly nods her head, then continues, audibly fighting back tears.
許しだけでも許してもらおうってあの人に
Him? Your father?
私があなたをユージをこうさせてしまったから私がいなかったらこんなことにはなってないってだから私があの家に戻ることでユージを助けてもらえないかってお願いしようって
Yumiko, you...
でもかけようとしてやめたの結局話はしてなくてそれで
I wrap my arms around Yumiko and interrupt her words. Crushing her against me in a powerful hug, I pet her hair and stroke the small of her back.
ユージ
Sorry. All I seem to do is make you worry. The girl was so desperately concerned about me that she nearly threw away her own freedom away. I was naive to think I understood. Stupid to think she would just put it behind her. For a moment, I'm immersed in something very much like despair. How well can the likes of me possibly answer such intense feelings? After gently stroking Yumiko's back one last time, I pull away, determined to at least try. We're leaving. It's better to assume they've already located us. As soon as you placed the call, they had a traceable record. There aren't many people who'd bother to use a payphone these days. It's going to raise suspicions.
私そんな
Yeah, I'm sure you had no idea. I can't do anything about it now. Put that out of your mind. Alright then. This isn't the time for me to catalog my failings, or for Yumiko to regret her actions. After quickly gathering up a few basic personal belongings, I open the curtains a crack and peer outside. Well, there doesn't seem to be anything suspicious going on yet. Taking my cell phone from my pocket, I open a map of the area around our apartment. All of the escape routes seem viable for the moment. We're going to catch a train at Sejima Station. Let's hurry.
大丈夫なの
Yes. With a reassuring nod, I take her by the hand. Just as before, I lead our escape, pulling Yumiko along behind me. The situation is clearly worse than it was back then. But today, Yumiko's grip seems a little firmer. As we run along the asphalt under the setting sun, I squeeze her hand in return, searching for the resolve I'll need to keep her safe.
くそ、遅かったか。
急に出て行った感じだな。荷物がまだほとんど残っている。
よし、すぐに社長に連絡しろ。俺は手がかりになりそうなものがないかどうか確認する。
わかった。はい。今現地に到着しました。申し訳ありません。確かにここにいたようですが、すでに逃げられた後でした。つい先ほどまでいた形跡が見られます。すぐに追います。
わかった。すぐに追え。逃がすな。逃がさんぞ、由美子。私の言うことを聞け。そして思い通りに動くんだ。
From the west Tsutomu Railroad's Saijima Station, we board a train on a line that winds its way through the mountains. I sit quietly next to Yumiko, my arm wrapped around her shoulder. She doesn't try to strike up a conversation either. It's still a little early for the office workers to be coming home, so the train's mostly empty. There's no real need for us to be silent. Still, neither of us exactly feel like having a casual chat. I watch Yumiko's face from the side. Her expression haggard. She stares quietly down at the floor beneath her feet. There is no light in her eyes. What sort of words would bring this girl real comfort? I've been searching in vain for what feels like a very long time now. Too clumsy to craft a skillful white lies, I couldn't even give her temporary relief. I just waited for things to mellow with the passage of time. There didn't seem to be any other choice. But that was wishful thinking, expecting the impossible. Something like this could have happened any moment, but I just passively waited for the infinite flow of time to solve all our problems for us. Pathetic as it is to admit, maybe I was just tired. This lifestyle took its toll on me as well. I wouldn't have chosen such an idiotic policy otherwise. I've got to tell her somehow. There's something I want Yumiko to know. But if I just came out and said it right now, there's no way she'd accept it at face value. In fact, she'd probably interpret it as kind but insincere lip service. Might as well end up pushing her further into her shell. Any attempt at cheering the girl up right now will probably have just the opposite effect. With a loud thunk and a squeal from the brakes, our train shakes heavily and comes to a halt.
西所山、西所山です。西川山岳線はお乗り換えです。
A bored-sounding conductor informs us we've arrived at a station. The Nishikawa mountain line, as the name might suggest, leads up into the mountains themselves. It heads even further into the backwoods than our current destination. As I glance out from our mostly empty carriage, a sign on the station platform catches my eye. Halfway up the mountain line, the West Tsutomu Railway built a baseball stadium as something of a tourist attraction. The sign's covered with a large poster advertising the team's upcoming schedule. But my gaze comes to a halt just below it. Underneath that flashy logo with the name of their baseball field spelled out in English, there's another sign I hadn't noticed at first. It brings back a memory from a few months ago, something we talked about before the strain began to wear us down. Something important that I'd nearly very forgotten. Oh, that's right. We've been hard-pressed to get by. Maybe it's only natural that this slipped out of my mind. But it's something Yumiko needs. Something she's needed for a long time. Yumiko, you awake? Pulling Yumiko's head toward my shoulder, I lightly shake her body.
もちろん。
Time to transfer.
乗り換え？ここで？
Yeah, we've got to hurry. The train's gonna leave.
わかったわ。
We step out onto the platform, then make our way toward the largely deserted branch line. The wind, still a little cold despite the season, plows vigorously through the exposed station.
ねえ、ユウジ、このまま先へ行くのではなかったの？どうしてこっちに？
I forgot something. We're gonna go take care of that.
家へ戻るの？
No, that's not it. I glance back at Yumiko. Just as before, her hand is still on my shoulder. Her expression is haggard. She stares quietly down at the floor beneath her feet. There is no light in her eyes. her expressions full of profound fatigue and sorrow. Forcing my dull face into the most reassuring smile I can manage, I speak. This way, Yumiko. Pulling her along by the hand, I stride toward the mountain-lined platform. The wind gusts against our back as if to push us along.
Yuji!
What's up?
なんで、どうして
The train took us 3 stops up into the mountains before reaching its final stop. As soon as we disembark, Yumiko's expression transforms into one of pure bewilderment. With one step past the ticket gate, a sea of vivid electric decorations opens up theatrically before our eyes. It's an amusement park, if you haven't figured that out for yourself.
わかってるわよ。なんでこんないきなり
It's the polar opposite of the colorless fugitive life we've been trapped in for so long. I must feel like I've carried her into a dream. It'd be stranger if she wasn't taken aback. That's exactly it. Our pursuers will never suspect the two of us might be playing around here like we don't have a care in the world.
でもだからってそんな
Bringing my mouth close to Yumiko's ear, I speak in an artificially stern tone of voice. Listen, Yumiko, this is a crucial part of our escape strategy. Forget the questions for now. I need you to act like you're having fun.
そうなの
Yeah, it might very well invite suspicion unless we're sincerely enjoying ourselves. Make it look convincing, alright?
わかった
As Yumiko nods a little dubiously, I slap her gently on the shoulder and shift to a louder, cheerful voice. Have to start with the roller coaster, am I right?
嘘いきなりそんな強敵から
Powerful enemies, she says. I don't think amusement parks really have power levels, but apparently Yumiko's worked out a firm internal ranking.
そういうのって普通もっとこなれてきたから乗るものじゃなくてまずは緩いものから始めていくんじゃ
Well, it's all good. If we start off with the real thrill, everything after will seem easier by comparison, right?
でも
No buts. Come on, let's go. Firmly seizing Yumiko's hand, I drag her over to the roller coaster line by force. In a mostly empty amusement park, soon to be closed for the night, the sound of our rapid footsteps echoes through the air.
さあ今度はあれに乗るわよ
Maybe we should at least catch our breath first. Understandably enough, Yumiko had been hesitant at first, but after 2 or 3 rides that faded away completely. By now, she's the one pulling me around.
次は何乗ろうかしらユージは何がいい
Me? I'd like to ride that bench in the rest area for a while.
急流ウォータースライダーに乗りましょうよねえそれでいい
Now, people have often told me my listening skills need work, but it seems I'm not the only one.
いいから行きましょうほら
Hey, don't yank me around like that. Smiling wryly, I let Yumiko pull me back into a run.
ユージはカートの運転は得意
I've never been in one before, but, well, I imagine it won't be a problem. I did drive a Lamborghini really fast once. That's not quite the same thing, but I've got experience driving up to 300 kilometers per hour, but it's probably best to keep that thought to myself. No point reminding the girl of the past. In any case, handling this sort of vehicle is actually something of a specialty of mine. Wanna have a go?
あんまり女の子らしくないけど笑わない
That's a little late to worry about that now. After the way you flipped out on that thrill ride, ow! Yumiko pokes me sharply in the flank.
失礼ねそんなに嬉しそうにはしてないわよ多分
This is coming from the girl who's cackled with glee as the coaster went into a nearly straight vertical drop. Well, whatever. Let's give it a shot. I'm looking forward to seeing you drive.
私ハンドルを持つと人が変わるのよ
Seriously?
冗談よというよりゲームを含めてやったことないもの
This inspires a moment of relief, but soon I recall the distressing example of a certain monstrous speed demon named Soy Amane. Well, indeed, there's no telling how taking hold of the steering wheel will change a person. A vision of Yumiko merrily smashing around the track, shrieking, "Ah ha ha ha! This feels so good! I want more, Yuji!" flashes before my eyes. I think I'll have to keep a very careful eye on how things develop out here.
どうしたの？突然難しい顔をして。
It's nothing. I was just reflecting on the countless possibilities lying dormant inside the human soul. Or something.
はあ？もうあらかた乗り尽くしたわね。
Well, yeah, since we went from one end of the park to the other, riding literally everything we saw.
ユージが意外と回転系の遊具に弱いことが分かって面白かったわ。
Yumiko looks over me with a smirk on her face. So sue me, I'm just not a fan of that coffee cup thing.
明らかに不機嫌そうだったものね。今度からユージが何か悪いことをしたら、椅子に座らせて回転させる罰を与えるわ。
Spare me the practical applications, please. It's good that Yumiko seems to be enjoying herself, but the last thing I need is the girl developing some weird little superiority complex. I think some retaliation may be in order. Yumiko, how about this next?
まだ乗っていないのが。
The instant Yumiko peers down at the pamphlet in my hands, her face stiffens like water freezing to ice. What's wrong? Where's that energy and enthusiasm gone all of a sudden, Sakaki Yumiko?
そんなとこだけフルネームで呼ばないでよ。ねえ、ここはいいから他のとこにしましょう。ね。
Yumiko looks up at me with pleading eyes. Meeting her gaze with a deliberately kind expression, I answer flatly and decisively. Not happening.
嘘。
It's your punishment for mocking me about the spinning ride. Only fair that we have your face up to your weakness as well, right? I make my way to a building tucked into the dense forest on the edge of the amusement park, forcibly pulling a resisting Yumiko along behind me. A building marked Spine-Chilling Hall of Horrors.
いやー、ユージのバカ、意地悪。私がこういうの苦手だって知ってた。いやー。
Well, well, I wasn't expecting much from a mere amusement park attraction, but that was a truly engrossing experience. The wax figure that popped out halfway through was particularly well made. The way his brains burst out all over the place was quite realistic, don't you think? Oh, and the master of the hall, I saw the decapitation coming. But I wasn't expecting his severed bloody head to come flying in our direction. Ha ha! I guess it's worth giving that sort of place a try every once in a while, eh, Yumiko? What's wrong? You haven't been saying much, and that pale face of yours is getting whiter. Did you catch a cold or something? You did seem even more frightened than I expected. Yumiko only shrieked and screamed like a normal girl for the first 5 minutes or so. After that, the terror must have overloaded her brain. No matter what came after us, she'd just quiver violently at my side, her face froze in an unexpressionless mask. You really are totally helpless against that sort of stuff, huh? My bad.
知ってて連れて行ったくせに、そういうド S なところユージにはあるわよね。
I can't deny that.
夜だってやめてって言ってるのにす
Hello.
ごいこと。
You say something?
なんでもない。ほら、今度は怖いのじゃなくて、もっと面白そうなのに行きましょう。ね。
Her pallid face abruptly blooming red, Yumiko pulls me firmly along by the hand in a clear attempt at changing the subject.
さすがにちょっと疲れたわね。
Yeah, same here. We've finished visiting nearly all the attractions the park has to offer. Yumiko glows with obvious satisfaction, but there's a hint of fatigue in her eyes as well. Of course, considering the long and stormy day we've just had, I suppose it's only natural for her to be a little worn out. Why don't we finish by riding up Ferris wheel or, Yumiko? As I'm suggesting we conclude our visit with that venerable amusement park staple, I notice that Yumiko is looking off in a completely different direction. Is there something behind me? It doesn't seem like it. She's been shooting glances over at one fixed point in particular. Subtly, careful not to let Yumiko notice, I followed the line of her gaze. Wait, does Yumiko seriously want to? What I find there surprises me. It's an attraction, somewhat out of sync with Yumiko's image. Of course, an amusement park isn't the sort of place you'd expect to find Yumiko to begin with, but even in that context, this ride stands out as an S-rank mismatch. Hey, Yumiko?
何ユージ
Do you, want to ride that thing? I pointed in the direction Yumiko was just looking and gingerly asked the obvious question. Instantly, in a replay of the previous conversation, her pale face lights up with a violent blush.
何言ってるのよ。なんで私があんな小さい女の子が乗るようなものに。
Well, you've been running around like a little girl the whole time we've been here, haven't you?
バカにした。今はっきりと私をバカにしたわね。
Well, in that case, you just want to skip it and leave. I guess that's decided then. You're so easy to understand. Getting up off the bench, I take Yumiko by the hand and pull her to her feet. Let's make that the grand finale then.
だからユージ
Aww. Before long, the two of us has climbed onto the ride Yumiko had her eye on. The park's shutting down for the night very soon. There aren't any other visitors to be seen.
ちょっとやだ。恥ずかしいわよ、こんな。
But nonetheless, the girl looks around the area nervously, self-conscious despite the complete lack of spectators. What's the problem? Nobody's around. Might as well throw your pride to the wind and regress to childhood.
いきなり言われて、はいそうですかって戻れないでしょ。もう。
Ignoring Yumiko's protests, the merry-go-round creaks to life and begins to spin. A vast array of cheap-looking electric decorations and lights begin to blink cheerily on and off. And an upbeat tune that feels vaguely familiar plays from the speakers overhead.
こんな子供騙しなものに。
Halfway through the sentence, Yumiko falters. The carousel horse slowly rides and falls underneath us. The scene before our eyes transforms again and again. A brilliant green gradient fades into a sky of impossible indigo blue, forming an artificial stage in the midst of the darkness. White lights above merge into one continuous line, illuminating the spectacle. As the soothing, strangely nostalgic sounds and lights wash over us, the tone of Yumiko's voice gradually begins to change.
子供騙しのものに。
What's wrong? I can hear the girl faintly breathe in, and then, in a voice just barely audible over the garish music, she continues.
すごく乗りたかった。こうやって
Aww.
大好きな人とね。
Aww. Every time we move up and down, the metal fixtures supporting our horse creak audibly. With every clunking repetition, Yumiko's body shakes a little in my arms. And it's not just because the horse is worn out.
母の実家にいた頃はね、最初とても不思議だったのよ。
Yumiko shared her memories of those early days with me before. How at first, she grew up assuming herself to be a normal child. How she slowly came to realize she was different. The beginning of her isolation.
休みの日になると、海の方にある遊園地や浜辺に、お父さんやお母さんと一緒にみんな出かけていく。自分だけ一人で家の庭で土の上に絵を描いている。お母さんは病院にいる。お父さんは遠いところにいる。おじいちゃんもおばあちゃんも私がまるでいないかのように振る舞う。
The quivering of her body grows noticeably stronger against my hands.
私は生まれてきてはいけなかったんだって。誰とも一緒に行っちゃいけないんだって。
Yumiko's sentence shudders to a halt. Her shoulders heave with silent sobs. The girl's been making an effort not to cry in front of me. Even when she was crushed by her own failures, she did her absolute best not to break down. Even now, She keeps her back turned, refusing to let me see the tears. How many times has Yumiko cried like this? Her face hidden from the world. Abandoned, rejected, betrayed, hacking at her hair with a box cutter, hiding in her room, at all the times it hurt most. The girl's been on her own.
だからこうやってユージと一緒に遊んだことが今日本当に嬉しかったの。
Yumiko,
嬉しかったの。本当に嬉しかったの。
artificial stars rotate before our eyes. The light merges together into one long multicolored stripe, dancing up and down, left and right. Red and white and yellow and blue extend all around us, spinning in time to the cheerful, simple music.
ユージ、本当は作戦なんて嘘だったんでしょ。私のためを思ってここに連れてきてくれたんでしょ。
I never tell lies. Don't you know that by now?
ユージは優しいもの。私にいっぱいたくさん優しく嘘をついてきたもの。
Ridiculous slander.
本当は辛いのに何でもないってずっと言い続けて、私が気にするからってずっと隠して、ユージにもっとわがままを言ってほしかった。でも言わせてあげられなかったのが本当に悲しかった。
Yumiko hesitates, choosing her next words carefully. I know what's coming next. It's nothing I want to hear. A phrase we've tried to make taboo.
ごめんね、ユージ。
It must have been on the tip of her tongue so many times these last few months. The miserable apology that finally spills out of Yumiko's mouth is a quite frail thing, but it's still enough to pierce me to the core.
あなたが抱えている辛さや悲しさをもっと一緒に分かち合いたかった。傷も何一つできなくてごめんね。私がごめんね。
Yumiko? Calling her by name, I stroke her cheek with one hand. As if her own pain wasn't enough, she wants to take on the darkness inside me. She's trying to load down her slender body with a weight it can't possibly bear. And this from a girl too weak to even support herself. I have something I want to say to you as well, Yumiko. I draw the arm I've wrapped around Yumiko closer to me. Pressing her body firmly to mine, I speak the words clearly into her ear. I'm really glad you were born. Thank you. I've never had anyone care about me this much. Everything I did before I met you felt hollow. I always ended up alone. With my master gone, I didn't know why I was even bothering to keep on breathing. Continuing to work for my country, I tried to find the meaning of the words she left me at the very end. They were all I had left. I still haven't unraveled that mystery, but now I'm with Yumiko. I think I'm beginning to glimpse some small fragment of the answer. At the very least, your birth had meaning for me, so let me say this one more time. Don't apologize. I'm grateful to you. I embrace her even more strongly than before. Above the swaying carousel horse, Yumiko's body begins to tremble once again. A warm drop of water falls on the hand I've wrapped around her, then another. Pretending not to notice, I gently stroke her hair.
あなたはどうしてそう優しいの？
I'm not kind, just full of myself. I do what I want.
やっぱり優しいわよ。だってそんなこと言われたら私もう何も言い返すことなんてないわ。
Her hand reaches back to grasp the sleeve of my shirt.
本当にあなたは優しくて
Sorry, it's my nature. It takes some time for Yumiko's trembling to die down. The park outside is already sinking into darkness, as I watch the lights on the other attractions wink out in ones and twos. By the way, there was one other reason I brought you here.
もう一つ
It sounds like she's forgotten. Because I promised.
約束
As my words jog her memory, Yumiko's voice takes on a note of surprise. You told me you wanted to visit one of these, remember? I know the timing's a little crazy, but... Tears wind up in the corner of her eyes. She looks back at me and smiles.
嬉しい覚えていてくれたのね
Oh, come on, no way I'd forget something like that. The music playing from the tinny, poorly maintained speakers above us is repeatedly interrupted by bursts of static. That giant noise periodically cuts the conversation apart. The cheap dream world creaks and groans around us. It's not exactly the sort of illusion you can just lose yourself in. But none of that really matters. I found a woman who can love a piece of trash like me from the bottom of her heart. That's enough to make this place an impossible paradise. Eventually, the last attractions go dark, and our little fantasy world fades away with the sigh of a motor. I sit on our horse with my arms around Yumiko, quietly speaking her name again and again, as if to remind her that she's here, that this is real. And in response, she whispers Yuji many, many times. In a forest so dark it's impossible to tell where the trees end and the sky begins, our train winds its way down to civilization. Little by little, the small lights of carriage windows come into view in the station below, where we transferred only a few hours ago. As much as we might want to deny it, those lights force us to realize that our time in the dream world's over. Down there, inescapable reality's waiting for us. It's already past 10. They've had hours to follow our trail. Once we transfer to that train that will carry us away from here, we won't be able to turn back. At my side, Yumiko quietly gazes at the back seat in the front of her. Her eyes aren't hollow and lifeless like they were before, but from the tightly clenched fist resting on the seat by her thigh, I can see that she's still uneasy. I lower my hand from her shoulder to cover that small fist. After a few gentle strokes, she lets her hand fall open, then turns it to squeeze mine in return.
どこへ向かうの
The questions tend with a little anxiety. We'll take a detour to the north, then head east. From there, we'll change to a different private railway, then head further north.
北へ
Yeah, there's some decently populated towns along the coastal railway where we shouldn't stand out too much. Hide people among people. Still following that basic principle, I've decided on a slightly more distant destination. However, unless the fundamental dynamics of the situation change, our fugitive lifestyle is never going to end. From what JB's told me, the East Beach group has some delicate circumstances at the moment, but if that changes, they might go public with the search. The police will get involved, Ichigaya will move in earnest, even the media will start working against us. At that point, there probably won't be any safe place left for us. We're still two isolated individuals struggling against an incomparably stronger opponent.
逃げるしかないのね
There's no doubt Yumiko feels the same apprehension. The tone of her voice is low, resigned. Gazing at her slightly downcast face, I finally make up my mind to ask. Actually, Yumiko, I have a question for you. She turns to look at me. Staring straight into her eyes, I continue. Do you want to confront your father? If you've got the will, I might have a way. I've been slowly making preparations ever since we ran away.
私が
That's right. We can also run away, if that's what you want. If we confront him and lose, we'll be torn apart. But there's risk either way. Yumiko listens to my words quietly and attentively. But as I continue, her gaze slips from mine and begins to fall downward. By the time I finish speaking, she's staring straight at her feet.
私には選べないわ
After a brief pause, she answers in a voice bitter with self-derision.
私は 何も成長できていないもの。アパートから逃げ出した時だって自分から電話をかけてしまった。
And once again her voice begins to quaver as she struggles to hold down the tears.
寮から連れ去られた私をユージが助けに来てくれた時、私はユージを信じようって思った。だからあなたから伸ばされた手を握ったわ。でも最後の最後のところであなたを信じることができなかった。そんな私にユージと共に何かできることなんて。
I shake my head to deny her words. You're wrong, Yumiko. You've changed. There's no doubt about it. Yes, you tried to make that phone call, but you hung up before he answered, didn't you?
それはそうだけど、でも結果としてその行為のせいであの人たちに見つかることになってしまって。
Hindsight's 2020. I'm talking about what you were thinking, Yumiko.
私が。
Yeah. I remember the day when Yumiko dismissed me. The day she tried to leave my life forever. Refusing to acknowledge her own will, unable to rely on me, she tried to disappear all on her own. That Yumiko would have made the call. She would have told her father everything. Believing all the while that she was doing me a favor. You pulled yourself back from the edge. You fought down the fear and held on to your own free will. And I'm going to stay with you, no matter what kind of ending we've got waiting for us.
ユージ。
Yumiko throws herself against my chest. Her body's slender and light as always, but today, I can feel a strength in her that wasn't there before. Slowly, face buried against my shirt, she gathers her breath. I just sit there, letting her respiration warm my skin, enjoying the affectionate movements of her fingers against my back. And finally,
答えが出たわ。
Yumiko pulls away and meets my gaze. That's a coincidence. Same here. Simultaneously, our face breaks into smiles. There's no hint of strain or awkwardness. They're probably the most easy, natural smiles we've ever had on our faces for a long time. And again, in Yumiko's eyes, I see something like determination. Well, resignation might still be a part of it, but that strength I glimpsed in her is real. I absolutely believe her now.
一緒に言いましょうか。
Sounds good. Our eyes fixed on each other, we open our mouths to speak. For a long time, our feelings for each other kept us at cross purpose. But now, finally, we're standing together, facing the same moment, seeing the same future. Seeing the road we'll travel. And we are left with a choice. Which choice will we make? Shall we run away together and live as fugitives our entire lives? Or shall we confront the man Yumiko has feared her whole life? Maybe we can bargain with him to hopefully make all of this go away. Live like normal people again, but I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to choose. And it is because of that I'm going to wait until Monday to decide. So I will see you all on Monday. Have a good weekend, guys.